Hello, good evening. Israel has rejected calls for an independent inquiry into the killing of at least 15 Palestinian protesters by Israeli troops in Gaza on Friday. Both the United Nations and the European Union have called for an inquiry. The Israeli Defense Minister says his soldiers were protecting the country's borders and that 10 of those who died were militant Islamist activists. Our Middle East correspondent, Tom Bateman, reports now from the Gaza Strip.
A third day of protests on Gaza's border with Israel. These tents sit just hundreds of meters from the fence where Israeli snipers watch. Palestinians say they will stay put as they talk about the events of Friday.
We are innocent civilians, but the Israeli occupation doesn't even give us the right to express ourselves.
Our people, our sons, our youth, they were standing about 500 meters away from the border, but they shoot and kill.
The numbers of protesters here have fallen since the events of Friday. But for those who continue to come, they do so for a key reason that they see as at the core of this conflict, the Palestinian right of return. But for Israel, it is the position of these camps so close to the fence that they see as a provocation. As we filmed, more gunfire broke out. Palestinian leaders say the force used on Friday was disproportionate and indiscriminate. Gaza's health ministry said in addition to those killed, more than 750 people were injured from live ammunition on Friday. The EU's diplomatic chief has echoed a call from the head of the United Nations for an independent inquiry. But Israel says it was protecting its fence from what it called violent rioters, arguing any breach would threaten Israeli lives. It says at least 10 of those killed belong to militant Islamist groups, including Hamas, which controls the Gaza Strip. Israel's defense minister rejected calls for an inquiry into the deaths. The rhetoric stepped up today as Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan labelled Israel's Prime Minister a terrorist. Mr. Netanyahu responded saying the Israeli army was the most moral in the world and would not be lectured by those who have indiscriminately bombed civilians for years. Palestinians say they will protest here for 6 weeks, culminating when the US plans to move its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Many on both sides of this conflict fear further violence is on the horizon. Tom Bateman, BBC News, Gaza.
Well, the wider Middle East was part of the Pope's Easter address at the Vatican today. He called for reconciliation and an end to civil war in Syria and in Yemen. And meanwhile, here, the Archbishop of Canterbury, in his Easter address, said everyone should have hope, whatever their circumstances. Our religion editor, Martin Bashir, reports.
The stark surroundings